podcast.
Hooray.
Okay, so
Hooray.
welcome, infidels, to this special mujahideen themed episode of the Magic Morning Wood, episode 7, I believe. And even though this is going to be dropping a little bit early in the month, usually at the beginning of the month, you could save it up for the festive season and consider this our Christmas themed episode.
You could.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you would do that, but...
And today's film, Ron,
yes.
it's International Guerrillas, 1990 movie out of Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long film.
Yes, yes it is.
167 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where to start with this one. I'm assuming this was your first viewing.
Yes.
Okay. So your story about how you first came to this movie isn't really that interesting.
No, this is it.
Neither is mine.
Yep.
I just happened to see it for the first time, I don't know, 5-6 years ago or something.
Okay.
And
So please, by all means, please tell us
why on earth
you would choose this movie.
Well, I think this movie is certainly a lot more interesting to talk about than maybe watch. I think I would urge if anyone, and I think it is worth a look, but you might want to do it in increments of, you might want to chop it into like 3 parts or something. I sat through this whole thing yesterday for the second time. I'm not doing it again, Ron. I'm not doing it again. But there are rewards to be had here.
Really?
Yes, I think so.
I'm looking forward to finding out what those are.
Okay. We clearly disagree off the bat on this one. Pakistani movie in, I think, Urdu language, although the version we saw, I don't know the difference between Urdu and it could have been dubbed in like Punjabi or something. I don't have a clue, but it's nominally a Lollywood film, which is the term given to the Pakistani film industry, which you might not think is that big, but they do churn out a surprising amount of stuff, and enough, and we'll get into this a bit later, enough that there are kind of, even within Lollywood, there's kind of little regional distinctions to be made, right? And the version, did you watch the link I sent you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually, you can see this for free. It's up on archive.org, or it's also on YouTube, I noticed, in an awful quality version, right? It's some kind of ancient VHS.
Yeah, it as I said, it looked to me as if someone had an old VHS copy that they played with very bad tracking, when you had like that tracking bar.
Yes.
And then they just took a handy cam and recorded their TV playing that bad tracking. So.
And the image rolls quite a few times.
And a couple times like the image is like 2 different images, one at the top, one at the bottom.
Yes.
Different.
And the emulsion is scratched to shit. Yeah. And it's from Rio Video.
Rio Video was up there the whole time. Yeah. So.
But the one thing in its favour is someone's made English subtitles for this thing, which is kind of a treat, because I've sat through a handful of kind of Pakistani movies now. I've never had English subtitles to help me along before. I think,
How did you watch them then?
Without subtitles.
Just guessing what they're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You never watch anything? Oh, okay.
No.
Well, no, from time to time. I mean, because some stuff's never going to be subtitled, right? So you're either just never going to look at it, or you just have to dive in, right? Or if you're really great, you learn a whole bunch of languages. But not really my forte.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. I think we're going to do something a little different here because I'm kind of really curious. I want, without too much length, because we'll get into it. Give me your brief kind of initial reaction, kind of overall. What are your thoughts on International Guerrillas?
Here we go. Well, how do I put this? So
I can tell you liked it.
Oh yes, it was unbelievably terrible. It was, okay, I'll do a disclaimer right off the bat. I tried really, really, really hard, but I just couldn't watch it all. I couldn't do it. And yes, I'm sorry. I made it. I tried very, very hard. Now, that being said, I really, really, really hate it. I actually, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine watching when I read like reviewers saying like, "Oh, I walked out of the movie." Blah, blah. So at least I tried to watch as much as I could in terms of bits and pieces and seeing how it progressed, and I saw. Okay. I did watch the ending.
Okay, good.
Because I'd heard that the ending was kind of something to see. So
I'm
not saying I didn't just turn it off. I watched about 70 minutes of it, and then I got to really feeling like I needed to scratch my eyes out. So then I skipped ahead a little bit and I saw some scene with a guy with a really big cigar.
Right.
And then I saw that for a little bit, and then I skipped ahead a little bit more, and I saw some song about. A shot of love or something, and I skipped ahead and saw another song, and then I skipped ahead and I saw like the last 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
So I basically I get the idea, but I will say that you're a bit on your own today because I really tried really hard, and it's really something that actually is a pet peeve of mine. But I basically vacillated between three states of being when I was watching this movie. The first was being just inordinately bored, like beyond, like beyond any words I can comprehend. Like just really like, and I was really confused because the quality of the picture made everyone really blurry, and a lot of people looked very similar. Like there was, I think, 2 or 3 generals who had painted on mustaches.
Right.
And I couldn't tell them apart. I couldn't tell who was who. And everyone just yelled every time. Every yell was just yelling. Everything. Everyone just yelled every line, no matter what. It was just yelling or singing. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what they were talking about. I read some like summaries online about what the story was supposed to be about, and I couldn't like grasp what was happening most of the time, or who was talking, or what they were doing. So finally, I got the idea of what the main story was. I could finally tell the main character, the villain, apart. What's his face?
Salman
Rushdie. Yes, I could tell Salman Rushdie apart because he had like different suits on, and he looked different than everyone else, whatever. But
and he's Satan himself.
Yeah. And then I watched that, and then I would change after being bored to wanting to, like, as I said, scratch my eyes out. Like it was just it was painful to watch. It was really hard. Okay. And then my third state of being was angry. I was angry mostly at you for making me watch this. I was really.
You're a non-believer, Ron.
I was like, motherfucker, why did you make me spend 3 hours of my life to watch this? I felt like you were punishing me for something, or you were angry at me. I was like, we'll fight. Falls out. So that's the thing. So this is what I'm going to say. Is I apologize for not being able to make it through every minute of this movie. But I seriously would rather have them take me and pry my eyes open with an ocular speculum, like in Clockwork Orange, and be forced to watch Twin Falls, Idaho on repeat 24 hours a day for the rest of my life, than to watch one more second of this movie.
Next episode, International Guerrillas 2.
So I apologize. I tried really hard. It's been I had a bit of a busy week, and it was sort of like trying to find some time to watch it was a bit tough. But I was bored. Like my first thing was bored, and also I kept thinking about all the other things that I should be doing or could be doing at this time, and then it just sort of got angry, and I just like fuck it, I can't.
There's very few people in this world I would accept that from, but you're one of them.
Okay, again, I apologize off front, but I did see enough that I can get.
You can talk about it.
I can talk about it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I didn't see the ending and stuff. So,
was this your first Pakistani film?
I believe it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I've seen some other movies, but I don't know exactly, like some sort of Asian, that kind of area, Indian subcontinent kind of movies, but I don't know exactly which movie.
Well, the one thing that distinguishes Pakistani films, as you said, you were mentioning the shouting and also the incredibly loud sound effects. Which have nothing to do with what's going on.
And that was another issue as well. Just to add on, is that I had to watch it again I was watching it on the train.
Right.
So I had to watch it with headphones in the whole time, and it was quite painful actually to watch this movie. Because it was everyone was just, and I tried to keep turning down the sound, but it was just this like really loud like popping explosions and then yelling, and I kept turning it down, and it was actually like it was just emotionally painful, but also physically painful to watch this movie.
Yeah. From the beginning, there's like gunshots and horns and stuff. When nothing like that is
exactly. Yeah. So,
but the sound volume is matched by the visual volume, because lots of crash zooms.
It was. I didn't write very many notes, but one of the notes was like there were so many close-up zooms, like fast zooms where they go close up. Yeah, like I said, yeah.
That said, it is, unless you're accustomed to it at all, the Lollywood viewing experience is kind of full on, sensorily full on, isn't it?
Right. Yes.
Having said that, this is actually fairly restrained because it's in Urdu. The most insane Pakistani films seem to come from the Pashtun region, which I think is kind of like along the northern border with Afghanistan.
Okay.
The movies from that region make this seem quite tame.
Really?
Oh yeah, like even louder sound effects, more crash and people delivering performances. You know, it's all very loud, cackling, and there's nothing subtle about these films at all.
I was really shocked. I looked it up, and it was. I thought for sure this movie was shot in the early '80s, based on the quality of it. So the fact that it was shot in actually 1990 was quite shocking to me, because it was like I was like, "There's no way this is less than 40 years old." This movie,
right?
So,
So, if you're of a sensitive disposition like young Ron here, you may want to beware before venturing into the world of Lollywood. Yeah. But venture we must, Ron.
Yeah. So then I was like angry that you're taking 3 hours of my life to make me watch this. Now I have to spend another hour talking about it.
Right. Well, you did say you were game for anything.
I did. Yes, I did say.
So maybe you'll be more wary.
I think maybe I'll be more wary next time. Yeah.
So let's get into it. Okay. So basically, there is a kind of criminal cabal, right? There's a criminal cabal around Salman Rushdie. I'm assuming most people know who Salman Rushdie is, but just in case you're unfamiliar, Salman Rushdie is a British author who wrote a book which came out in '88 called The Satanic Verses. Have you read The Satanic Verses?
I haven't, no.
I haven't read The Satanic Verses either, but I think I know basically what it's about. I think it's a bit of speculative historical fiction. Apparently, and this doesn't come just from Salman Rushdie. This is part of Islam's teaching, that at some point when Muhammad was receiving messages from God, apparently there was a sequence of time where he was receiving messages from Satan, kind of posing as God, kind of, I guess, trying to tempt him down the wrong path, or similar to some Jewish interpretations of the the Old Testament as well has this, and with Adam and Eve, right, that actually the God that told them not to eat the apple was actually Satan in disguise and all that. So this is actually part of not the Quran, but what's the other one? There's the Quran, and then there's the other thing about Muhammad and the Quran that is kind of runs in parallel.
Okay.
Neither of us are scholars of Islam, but basically it's not something that Salman Rushdie just totally made up. He just wrote a bit of speculative historical fiction about what might have been imparted to Muhammad, hence the satanic verses.
Right.
This outraged at least sections of the Muslim diaspora, I guess, and the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran put out a holy order, a fatwa that Salman Rushdie could be killed, that he was kafir or takfir or whatever, enemy of Islam, and therefore, not only were you allowed to kill him as a good Muslim, you had a right to kill him. And Salman Rushdie went into...
Or a responsibility.
Yes. And Salman Rushdie actually went into hiding for, I can't remember how long, more than a decade. I can't remember when the fatwa was lifted, but basically he had to go into hiding for fear of his life and his family for a long, long time after writing this book, The Satanic Verses. It was kind of the Charlie Hebdo style controversy of its day. Right? So the real Salman Rushdie, of course, is an extremely soft-spoken, bespectacled, nebbish author. But in this version, he's the head of a criminal cartel, right? And the idea is, I think, to destroy Islam, right? To start a storm in the Islamic world. And they need some... like you said, it is massively confusing.
Oh, and one thing we have to also mention.
Right.
This is a comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, at least some of the time.
It's intended to be a comedy, at least. I'm not sure who exactly finds it funny. If it was meant to be a comedy for Muslims or meant to be a comedy for people who question Islam. I couldn't really tell who the desired...
That's why I find this film fascinating more than anything else, is the further you get into it as well, it does kind of get very uneven. So, so...
To say the least.
Yes. So they decide that they, from what I could figure out here, right, they need funding, right? They need funding for whatever it is they're trying to do. And Salman Rushdie puts this guy called Commander Jason in charge of... I'm already confused. I wrote this all down.
You've already got more than I ever got. All I got were that there was... This is basically what I got. My basic summary was that Salman Rushdie was this real criminal cartel, wants to destroy Islam, and then the good Muslims sent out 3 people to assassinate him.
I got that much.
That's basically all I got.
Yeah, but just at the beginning, there's a bit where there's a criminal called Gampat, right, who hangs out in a disco.
Okay, yeah.
And then...
I didn't know what was going on there. I didn't know what that
was.
Well,
I think he's supposed to be... Because in this movie, it seems like you've got good kind of fundamentalist mujahideen Muslims as our heroes, and Pakistan seems to be like the most important country of Islam, because if that goes down the drain, then apparently it's goodbye Islam. But they don't shy away from painting Pakistan as a corrupt country, right? Which is kind of led by corrupt infidels who aren't real Muslims. Right? So it's not pro all of Pakistan. It's pro this particular I'm not sure exactly. I'm sure that group has a name, but let's just stick with kind of radical Islamists, right? And this guy Gampat isn't that. He's part of the corrupt society. He hangs out in this disco with a bunch of criminals, and he's before doing he's got some entertainment for them, and then we get the first song and dance number, right? Girl comes out and dance, which is kind of, I guess, for Lollywood, this is the sexy scene, right?
Okay, yeah.
There's no skin on display. The girls are covered up from neck to toe.
Also, the girl with the eyes, I think, was supposed to be the sexy girl.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of, and like Bollywood and Indian cinema, Pakistani cinema is, of course, predominantly musical, right? So there's singing and dancing every now and again about whatever. So we got first song and dance, and then it's this party, right? Is
so
crashed.
I think sorry, just to cut it.
No.
So here's another thing that was sort of confusing me. I'm not so as familiar with the Bollywood tradition as some people are. Kind of thing. I don't really see a lot of Bollywood movies. I do know that they use a lot of music and a lot of musicals and stuff like that. But my experience with musicals, tend to be Western musicals.
Yeah.
The song usually is meant to either further the plot or to give you some information about the character's internal state.
Right.
Right. And so, but that was the thing with these songs, is that once they did songs, and it was just sort of like the same line repeated over and over and over again.
Right.
And I couldn't really understand if it was just for the effect of having a song, because people like to have songs, or if it was something to do with the plot, or if it was a character, it made me more confused just because I didn't know what I was watching.
Of course, I mean, there's good examples and bad examples, and I suppose there are really good examples where it does further the plot. But you're quite right, where it is slightly different from Western musicals, I think. They're not necessarily there to drive the narrative. I think movies from India and Pakistan have the song and dance numbers in for pure entertainment value. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be there. It's certainly a different way of looking at musicals that they have, I think.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to remember as well that in general, certainly Bollywood movies, and I think Pakistani movies as well, they're fucking long.
Yeah.
I mean, they're often long. This is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not particularly long for a Bollywood film. So, they just stick them in there and
for fun. Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe in parts of the country which are predominantly poor, I guess you're getting your money's worth. You go to the theatre, and I know in parts of India, for example, you going to the theatre is quite a big deal. You kind of go there, and your family brings an entire picnic. People are like cooking in the theatres, and running up and down the aisles and stuff. So it's a real kind of a day out or a night out, Anyway, so before this criminal cabal gets it together to do whatever they're going to do, a couple of guys crash the party, right? They come in through the roof,
right?
I guess. We've forgot to mention as well as Commander Jason, the other guy, the big guy at the head of Salman's cabal is Chief Batu Batu, who wears a bright red cowboy hat, which I quite liked. He's one of the mustachioed gents, played by Ranjila, and Salman's played by someone called Afzal Khan,
my favorite actor.
Yes. Great. Anyway, these two guys crash through, and they're out to rob the robbers, right? And there's more singing and dancing. The singing and dancing girl falls for these guys, and it's all very singy and dancey and crash zooms and sound effects and shouting. And at this point, I think anyone who's unfamiliar with cinema like this is just thinking, this is fucking batshit crazy.
That was me.
Yeah. And I suppose you're either kind of gonna go with it or shut down, right? Yeah.
I think I'd shut down.
Okay. So that's kind of interesting to me. There was no part of you that was slightly kind of intrigued by this kind of very loud, garish new world of cinema?
The loudness didn't bother me. The garishness and the singing didn't bother me. It was just that I just didn't. Maybe I just watched it in the wrong state of mind or something like that. It was just sort of. I just didn't understand what. I think it was more the confusion that just brought me out of it. Like, I just didn't know what was happening.
Right.
And even though I waited 70 minutes, it still didn't clear up for me. So I think it was just sort of like, I don't understand what the point of me watching more would be, because I didn't understand who was who and what they wanted or what their motivations were. And so so I don't think I even got that. I know they kept saying Chief Batu Batu, but I don't think I even got that Batu Batu was working for Salman Rushdie. Like, I don't think I even got that connection, right? So yeah, I didn't know who was working for who. So
you were just watching a bunch of things happening with basically nothing to string it together.
Yeah, I felt like a newborn baby just watching like shapes and colors.
Right. And, well, that can be very exciting.
Yeah, I guess. So
right. Okay.
And cautious, of course. Yeah.
Yes. So so it turns out that these two guys who try to rob the robbers are brothers, and then another guy turns up with the police, and this is their... Now, this confused me. I could never quite figure out if he was their brother or their brother-in-law. And this... the two guys... Well, these are our three heroes, eventually. The two guys who crash in, and this other... who's not the police chief, but he's like assistant police chief or something. They are Ghulam Mohudin, Javed Sheikh, and Mustafa Qureshi. I know...
That's their real names, or their...
Those are their real names.
Okay.
Yeah. I know there's posters for all three of these on your bedroom wall. Right?
Yes. Yeah. On my ceiling.
And at first, they're kind of at odds, right? Because these two guys are criminals, he's on the police. And then we have this very bizarre domestic scene with the brother's wife and their sister-in-law, and their kids, the niece and nephew, and there's this really strange kind of domestic, and there's stuff about police corruption, and again, I think this makes more sense to a domestic audience, or a domestic audience in 1990.
Right.
I think International Guerrillas was a fairly big hit in Pakistan, I think.
What I read, I did read a little bit about how it was received, and that, so, I mean, just talking about the reception of it, I mean, Salman Rushdie himself called it, and I quote, a distorted, incompetent piece of trash, which isn't surprising considering he's like a really, really terribly portrayed in this movie kind of thing, right? So, but I think that he undersold it a little bit. I think he was but I think he but the idea was originally it was banned.
It was almost banned in the UK.
It was originally banned in the UK, but then
which and the reason to which I suppose we'll get to pretty soon. But
but then of course Salman Rushdie said, "Don't ban this movie. Let them see it, because if they ban it, then it's going to become a thing." Yeah, right. That people will want it.
Smart
and sure enough, they allowed it to be played. And I guess I've heard it was like the first Pakistani movie ever to be played on the BBC or something, or on British television.
I read that as well, but I reckon that's wrong. I don't think this has ever been on British television.
Okay.
I think it probably, what it meant was it was probably available on video in stores that sold or rented Pakistani and Indian movies, and it might have played some.
But then it wouldn't be the first, though, if that was the case.
No, which might be that might just be a totally bullshit statement.
It may have been that they may have just played it like on like a middle of the night or something, like when.
The reason I doubt it is because if it had played at all on terrestrial television, first it would have had to have subtitles.
Which is why maybe this one has subtitles and the other one's
Well, no,
don't,
because you can tell by this. Well, the subtitles for this one are they're newer than the print, right? Because they're not all fucked up. They're quite.
Okay.
You can read them, right? And plus, they would never have shown a film of this terrible quality with copyright Rio video on it.
True. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And no, I'm calling bullshit on that. I reckon it never played British TV.
Well,
yeah.
Anyway,
but that's what it says. It's like Wikipedia or something. So
right. Something. Yeah. So, but anyway, what it did say was that then they made it. It lifted the ban.
Yes. Yeah.
And then of course no one didn't even make a blip on the radar.
No.
Apparently it was big in Pakistan.
Yeah.
But no one else heard anything about this movie.
So. No. And it became a kind of cult word of mouth. I'd say, not until at least 10 years later. It started doing the bootleg.
Right.
And at first didn't have. I remember first reading about it. Didn't have English subtitles either, so someone's put them on since then. Yeah. So anyway, there's this basically all of a sudden, it's in the newspaper about Salman Rushdie's Satanic Verses, and people are up in arms about this Satan Salman Rushdie who's out to destroy Islam with his book, right? And the Ayatollah Khomeini, announces his fatwa, and there's going to be some protests. Some student protests protesting against Salman Rushdie and Satanic Verses. And apparently the police and the government have decided in advance that they're going to shoot at these protesters, right? And so these, infidel police have decided to shoot innocent Islamic protesters, and that's exactly what happens. The next day, some protesters and they got shot. Which I didn't realize this. Apparently, this did actually happen in Islamabad. The Worsting police did open fire on protesters and killed 5.
Really?
Yeah. So now.
So this is actually a documentary.
Yes, that's right. So the brother who was the assistant police chief, who was at odds with his brothers before, now suddenly sees the error of his ways, realizes how corrupt his people are, that they're not real Muslims, and he vows, along with his... Wow, you're even yawning listening to me talk about it. He vows that along with his 2 brothers, that they will kill Salman Rushdie. So it's at this jaw-dropping point of the movie, you realize you are actually watching a mujahideen film. It's a pro-fatwa mujahideen film comedy musical in which Salman Rushdie
is the villain.
Yes, a very nasty villain who kills people and sniffs blood on their clothes and gets all excited, and it's quite a thing. On that level, I find it fascinating because I don't think I've ever seen another pro-mujahideen movie.
Oh, okay.
Yourself?
No, can't say I
no. So it's kind of interesting to see things from another point of view. Right?
I guess, yeah.
And the nephew and niece are shot as well. They're shot during this, so that kind of gives impotence. And we learn, quote, "Forgiveness is for Muslims. It isn't for non-Muslims." We also learn at this point as well, that's a record.
But of course they're not forgiving because they're going to kill him.
Yes, yeah. But never mind the details. Well, no, that is for Muslims, right? Salman's not so he doesn't deserve forgiveness.
He doesn't deserve to be forgiven.
Right.
But of course, forgiveness is for Muslims to forgive, not to forgive other people, right? So.
Yes, not for non-Muslims. Yes. So, and Salman as well, I guess he's in hiding, but unlike in real life where he was kind of creeping around in fear of his life, Salman has an island fortress in the Philippines. Yeah. And General Batu, him of the red cowboy hat, seems to be his head of security, so he has like armed guards all over the place and scuba divers and all sorts of people defending his island fortress from the real Muslim guerrillas who are sent out to kill him, right? And we see him having guerrillas hung from trees and stuff, and he kills them with a scimitar, and like I said, he sniffs the blood, and he's a full on pantomime villain, Salman Rushdie.
Like mustache twirling without the mustache.
One of the few people without a mustache.
Without a painted on mustache.
Do you think they were... Because
it looked to me, again, quality is terrible. It looked to me like one guy looked like he had just literally drawn on with a black marker. Like,
yeah,
it really did look like it was like, oh my god, that's like just like black paint on his face, So
it has to be said, in general, the mustache has survived in cinema of the Indian subcontinent like nowhere else on earth. You're going to see, if you start watching Indian and Pakistani movies, forgive me, I don't know anything of Bangladeshi cinema, but you're going to be seeing a lot of mustaches and slightly overweight men.
Right. But really beautiful women now.
Yeah. There's a lot of kind of quite heavy heroes of this cinema. Maybe we should move there, Ron, and then we wouldn't have to worry about working out and... But as we established last episode, we're only kidding. We are actually Adonises.
Yes,
on the other side of this podcast.
Yeah, we are. So
that's why we don't do it. That's why we don't film it, right?
Yeah.
So we're not,
because we don't want people just to be watching us just for how we look.
Yeah, jerking off and stuff.
Anyway,
I mean, they might be doing that anyway because of our sexy voices. Stop it! Put that cock away. Put your vagina back where it was. Because we're talking to you.
Did you take your vagina off? Anyway.
I've never done it with a...
Yeah, okay.
So probably
best with a woman?
No, no.
All right, back to the terrible movie.
I can always dream, Ron. Anyway, back to this masterpiece, as you said. Commander Jason... we also discover, just layering on the kind of propaganda here, we also discover at this point that Commander Jason comes from the Jewish army as well, of course. So, of course, you're talking radical Islam mujahideen movie. Israel's not going to get out of this without, at least some inference that they're involved. And he has a sister called Dolly, right, who apparently has radar eyes. And when she first appears, she seems to just... She appears out of nowhere, right? Like there's a bit of magic in this film now and again. Earlier as well, there's a few scenes where people just kind of magically appear or something with like thunder strikes, but then nothing's ever spoken of it again, or no one mentions, are you magic, or you're a sorcerer. This just kind of seems to happen. That's another thing that happens in some other Pakistani movies I've seen as well. There's like these elements that you think, so there's a bit of fantasy in this, and that's it. It's never referred to again. I don't know where that comes. What the heritage of that kind of way of filmmaking is, or I don't know. But it's kind of interesting. There's more singing and dancing, of course, about how she has radar eyes. So 50 minutes in, the title comes on screen. And a bit of a theme tune.
You read that, 50 minutes.
International Guerrillas. And the producer and director credit, directed by Jan Mohammed. And I don't know why I'm looking at you. As if you're going to confirm.
I can't help you. You're on your...
directed by someone called Jan Mohammed. I don't think I've seen any other Jan Mohammed films. I'm sure Ron has his entire filmography.
So this was another place where it lost me. It was like I couldn't possibly conceive why they would have the title sequence 50 minutes into the movie. And I was like, does that mean that the rest of the movie is like exponentially longer than this build up to just the title sequence?
I'm wondering if it's got to be up there somewhere in the top 10 longest pre-credit sequences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Although it's not in a way, because we do get credits at the very beginning.
Yeah. So,
but they're not.
So
the
then
my
guess was, again, I didn't really understand entirely what was happening, but my guess was that once they decided to be International Guerrillas, which is when the title sequence came out, because they became. So it was sort of like the change in status, or their decision to become these.
If this was ever released, in the US, it's Ghulam Muhammad Javed Sheikh Mustafa Qureshi, International Guerrilla, along those lines, right? Yeah.
And just for people's edification, the Guerrillas in English seems to be spelled gorilla like the animal with the Y, Gorillalays.
What? Yeah, but
Relays.
But the only thing with that is where is that? Because
everywhere I looked it up, it was spelled that way.
I understand that, but on the print, it's only the English subtitle and it's spelled correctly, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I know what you mean. It's referred to on the net as International Guerrilla, right, or something.
Guerrillas.
Yeah. But I don't know where they're getting that from. If you see what I mean.
But I mean it's how it's that was the name of the file that we downloaded.
Right.
It's the IMDb page is spelled like that. Yeah.
But again,
Guerrillas.
But again, these are not exactly the integrity of these institutions isn't a 100%. I suspect, and this is total speculation, Mike, because I don't know anything about Urdu or Punjabi or anything. But my guess is, how like in Japanese we have the katakana alphabet for spelling out foreign words.
Right.
So if you were to actually I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, like last time we talked about that Archimedes, right? That's how you write Archimedes. But if you were to actually write it, if you were to transliterate back from the katakana into English, it would be Archimedes, like that, right? But if you were to write the English title of this Japanese show, you'd probably just write Archimedes properly.
Right.
So I'm guessing maybe in Urdu or Punjabi or whatever, maybe you can write guerrilla. So it sounds like so it's phonetic, but it's not quite right. And then when you translate it back, it's gorilla. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've noticed Korean, Japanese katakana works quite well for this. It gets it very good. But I've noticed, for instance, with some Korean, because Korea can do it as well. They do it sometimes. They spell out like non-Korean words using Hangul, right? But they're not quite. There was a film. I remember there was a film, and the English title was Puzzle, which is kind of more or less the original Korean title as well. But whereas in Japanese it would be Pazur, which is pretty close. The Korean one was more like Pyazur. Like it wasn't quite.
What was it?
Pyazur, like that. It was kind of not quite right. Shut up. So maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe the gorilla is So I'm going with it's just International Guerrillas.
Okay, but I'm just saying because even the IMDb page is Guerrilla. So if you're looking for this movie to watch it, you gotta try different spellings.
But the IMDb often fucks up when they do. I know with Japanese titles. So if it's a fuck up or not, I suppose it's debatable. Yeah. Right. That was an interesting little semantic digression there. You got a break from thinking about International Guerrillas for a bit. But now it's back to work, right?
Back to work. Back to the...
And we're only 50 minutes in. We're only a third through. Woohoo!
That was
not even a third.
That was close to my my thinking when I was watching the movie, without the woohoo.
Right. So, as soon as when they arrive at the this island fortress is in the Philippines, right? I guess.
I guess.
I don't actually remember them mentioning the Philippines. I just happen to remember at the opening credits it says some stuff about the Philippines, like filmed in the Philippines or something.
Right.
And it kind of looks like it might be the Philippines, and maybe it's... I suppose it could be filmed anywhere. They didn't know what they were filming, but even if they did, they could have gone down the kind of Muslim-friendly south, down Mindanao way or something like that. So, yeah. So as soon as they arrive in the Philippines, a dolly with her radar eyes, which can tell Muslims apart from non-Muslims, she knows, these three guys, they are Muslims.
Right.
Although, to be honest, I don't think you need radar eyes because they're not very good at faking past immigration. Because like one of them says, "Oh, we're on holiday," and then the other guy says, "We are here to kill him." And I'm thinking, you want to tone that down a bit if you want to get through.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they, as soon as they get off the plane, we get some action, right? More action. They're chased by some guys on motorcycles. Shitloads of explosions. There's loads of explosions in this film as well. If you like explosions, then you're in for a good time. And I noticed their motorcycles have rockets on them as well, like in the Delta Force.
Okay,
if you remember.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could think of this as the kind of answer to Delta Force was the villains were Palestinians, right? Led by Robert Forster as Abdul. So I guess this might be the kind of revenge for Delta Force. International Guerrillas is the answer to Delta Force. The question that was Delta Force.
Gamma Force.
Yeah. Huh?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. You should see Ron's face at this point, listener. He is losing the will to live.
I'm much better off than I was when I was watching the movie.
Yes, so they're captured and they escape. This happens a lot. They're captured and then they escape. This happens. You were 70 minutes. You're still watching it at this point.
I'm still watching it.
Yeah. This happens a lot.
Although you're telling me it's still new to me because I had no idea what I was watching. So
right. So they escape in the classical. It's the classic Bond villain thing, right? Is we'll now leave you to die, and we're going to go before we actually see you die. So it gives you a chance to figure out a way to escape, and that happens. They manage to escape. Blah blah blah. And now this is interesting. This was interesting for me. We're introduced to some new characters at this point, right? And this is fascinating for me as someone who doesn't really know much about the politics of Islam. We're introduced to a couple of sheiks from Dubai, right? Who are played very broad, as is everyone in this film, very broadly as kind of lecherous cowards, right? And comic relief. One of them smokes this massive fucking cigar, and the other one carries around a hookah with him everywhere, and they're always just on the lookout for girls, and they're just lampooned, right? They're lampooned, and so this is kind of interesting. So clearly, for the mujahideen types, I guess the Muslims of Dubai, at least at this time, were considered far from proper Muslims, right?
Yeah.
I guess Dubai being a kind of international playground.
Like, richer country or whatever.
Yeah.
Was it rich at that time? I don't know.
Well, I was getting there, right? And part of Saudi, so...
Right.
And, and close to the secular world, because it's just this international playground. So that's kind of interesting to see how they go out of their way. But as we'll see a little later on, that gets flipped on its head as well. You would know this because you did see this bit.
No.
But it's interesting how kind of tonally this film kind of changes, and the fact that if you say to someone like kind of American or British or French or German or whatever Japanese citizen that this is a pro-fatwa mujahideen film, that sounds really serious, right?
Yeah,
This sounds serious,
Yeah.
hardcore shit here, right? You know,
Right.
I mean, ISIS aren't exactly known for their comedy routines,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But like you said, the fact that it is comedic and this is lowest common denominator entertainment, right? It's a musical, it's an action movie, so it's thoroughly commercial. This is what isn't. It's not like a instructional film to play in mosques to radicalize people. This is kind of a entertainment for the masses.
Right.
I think that kind of mix. Well, for me, I find it kind of
Interesting.
fascinating. Anyway, I mean, even if the film isn't interesting, it's kind of interesting to
See
ponder.
in that perspective,
Yeah. Yes, and so this is the heroes decide to disguise themselves as. This is about the time you're tuning out, I think, is it? They decide to disguise themselves as women. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, okay. Because then the sheiks will invite them into their room, and then I got confused. And there's some.
Then you got confused.
Yes, and then there's some other characters with like windscreen wipers on their sunglasses.
Okay.
Did you see them?
No.
Okay. You should really watch it again, Ron.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's gonna happen.
When I finished the end of the movie, I deleted it as fast as I could because I didn't want my computer to get dirty.
Yeah, and they managed to get onto the compound, Salman's compound again. And they're captured and they're hung from helicopter skids. And someone rescues them. They're tied to the helicopter skids, and someone shoots through the ropes, and they fall in the sea. And this is when we find out that another character, Shagutta, played by someone called Neely, who was earlier on in the film one of the bad, corrupt Pakistanis who allowed the shooting of the protesters. His sister, this is his sister, and she killed him in a fit of rage, and she decided to join this mujahideen group as well. So she turns up with a gun, and now she's involved. So we got 4 heroes now, just to let you know what's going on. And again, there's a thing where they disguise themselves. Again, it's very kind of A-team. They disguise themselves as doctors.
Right.
To attend to the sheik. I don't know if you saw this bit. And they do the same thing. So they're like dressed as doctors, and they're kind of more or less kind of torturing this sheik.
Okay.
Pretending to look after him. And then one of the characters, it's either Commander Jason or Batu, they come up and they do the same thing. And there's a zoom in on each of their faces going, oh shit, does he recognise us? Oh shit, does he recognise us? Oh shit, does he recognise us? And then his face, do I recognise them? And then, oh yeah, it doesn't. But they do it 3 times with it. They really kind of ram the message home. Yes, my note here was, doesn't ratchet up the tension quite in the way I thought they were probably aiming for. And Salman, again, they escape. This happens. I'd even pointed at one point, it made me laugh out loud, because Salman actually says, you know, we keep capturing these people and they keep escaping. It's happened a few times now.
Yeah.
So he decides to set a trap for them, because he's going to go to the inauguration of a new casino disco that he's opening. Okay. So we get another awesome disco scene, almost as good as the one from earlier.
Right.
I remember you said you particularly enjoyed that one, Ron.
Yeah.
And did you see this bit? He enters. He seems to enter the club like several times. Did you see this scene?
No.
So there's all these people in the disco waiting for him to turn up, and Salman Rushdie walks in. And everyone goes, "Ooh!" And he's seen walking up to the and then some more dancing, and then there's also some gunshots and some people being shot. But that doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything. There's no one shot. It's very strange. It's like the people just appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then Salman Rushdie enters again, and everyone goes, "Oh, Salman Rushdie!" And it's the same shots of him entering the stairs and surprise. And the thing is, this film is so kind of such a visceral assault of images and sound, and you're all like you've already been battered over the head. You're kind of ready to give up at this point. That you just think, oh, for fuck's sake, why are they showing this? You know, you just think it's poorly edited or something. But they actually there's a point that he has clones of himself.
Oh,
so you have actually 3 Salman Rushdies.
Okay.
So they don't know which one to kill, right? And then, I hope you did see this bit, because I'm sure you would have enjoyed this bit. When there's 3 Salman Rushdies in the disco, and he's announced it because it's a trap, the two of our heroes, 3 of them and her, but she's not dressed up, she's just there with a shotgun, our 3 male heroes turn out dressed as Batman. Did you see this?
I did see something about Batman.
Yes. So for some reason they...
Yeah, I didn't know what was happening.
I didn't, and I fucking watched it and paid attention. I still don't know why they're dressed as Batman. They're kind of cheap Batman outfits. And then there's a shootout, and then halfway through they're suddenly in an outdoor stadium. I don't know how they got there. And then the 3 Saddam Hussein clones take off their masks.
Saddam Hussein clones?
Sorry. I don't know what
Salman
kind of...
Rushdie.
That's not a Freudian slip, that's some kind of other slip. Yeah, Salman Rushdie clones take off their masks, Mission Impossible style, and none of them are Salman Rushdie, and neither of them are Saddam Hussein either, just in case you're interested.
Yes.
I'm really doing all the work today.
Sorry, man, I got nothing.
No, you're all right.
You're on.
I just hope the listeners enjoy my voices. And then Salman manages to trick, because throughout the movie our heroes have been talking to their mother on the phone back in Pakistan. He convinces her to come to the Philippines, and he's going to kidnap them, and he times it. This is kind of weird as well. So rather than just get her to come to the airport and then they just kidnap, for some reason Salman Rushdie decides, I'm going to announce that I'm leaving the country, so I'm in the airport at the same time. And I'm just thinking, couldn't they have just gone to the airport and kidnapped her? But no, apparently it's necessary.
Give a reason to be there.
And also at this point our heroes are now disguised as hippie buskers in the airport. So clearly at this point of the film they thought, we need to start wearing disguises, because
they're international guerrillas.
Well, yes, that's right. And indeed the mother is kidnapped. I'm again pretty sure they could have done this without the announcement, but they anyway. It's a fairly elaborate film. They went to a lot of trouble for locations, and it wasn't thrown together. It seems like that, but it a lot of effort did go into making this. And after she's kidnapped, that fiend Salman Rushdie is going to force the mother to listen to a tape of him reading the satanic verses.
Oh, bum bum bum.
And they go to try and rescue, and wouldn't you know, they're captured again. But at least this time we're into the final stretch, so we don't have to see them escape again.
Right.
And so you must have tuned in somewhere back around here, right?
You perhaps, yeah.
And the sheiks, the foolish Dubai sheiks, suddenly turn out to have been faking the whole time, and they take off their sheiks' robes, and underneath they're also mujahideen.
Okay.
That's one of the big surprise reveals, which that threw me a little, because I was like, so were they not satirizing Dubai this whole time, or they don't actually take things as seriously as maybe we assume?
They are.
Yeah. So it's kind of, in a way I find this slightly heartening. I quite like that
open-minded movie.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that they're able to maybe slightly poke fun at the whole thing or not take it too seriously. It does kind of make them slightly different from people who ride planes into yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same on the same ideological plane, but on the other hand, I'm not sure if these filmmakers are actually dangerous.
Right.
So it's kind of, again, I think there's reasons to watch this film, and it's free. It's free, and like I said, you can cut it up into 3 or 4.
So the thing was about that is I intended actually to watch it in a few sittings,
right?
But the problem was that I knew that if I turned it off, I'd never be able to get it back on again. Yeah, I would never be able to bring myself to turning it on again. So I was like, I'm going to have to just motor through it and see. So that's why. But that's why I was like, but I don't think I can watch it all in one sitting.
Yes. Well, I think
that's why I did. I got enough of it.
I think I did warn you in advance. I did say like you might want to split it into 2 or something.
And I was planning to do that. But then once I started, I was like, if I turn this off, I'll never start it again. So.
Right. So the sheiks are killed and. I can't remember. Anyway, our heroes are certainly, and the mother, they're kind of tied up, right? You must have seen this, I think, they're tied up and they're going to be killed, right?
Yes, they're on, like almost crucified, basically.
Yes, and then they start to pray, basically. They pray and they sing about destroying these infidels. And we get footage of the Hajj, right? The annual pilgrimage to Mecca. We get stock footage of that. And Dolly, who earlier had betrayed, that was that love shoot sequence you were talking about. Yeah. That was Dolly, the one with the radar eyes, the sister of Commander Jason of the Jewish army, had tricked him into saying, actually I've fallen in love with you and now I'm a good Muslim. And that was one of the ways they captured them again in that endless cycle. I fast forwarded through all that because I figured you'd probably thank me for it.
Okay, great.
So, but now even she converts when she sees how the faith of these people and these inscriptions start turning up in the sky as well. I think like Allah and Muhammad and stuff. And then lightning comes from the sky and frees them of their chains, right?
Chains, yes.
And then there's like...
Well, but they also have like a song that they sing, right?
This is the prayer song thing that goes on. It goes on for quite a long time.
Yeah, but they're singing before the...
Yes, they're still tied to the... It was limited choreographer when you're tied to the cross.
It reminded me of like always look on the bright side of life kind of mujahideen version of it.
Oddly enough, I did think the same thing, but I was like, I'm not quite sure how to make the analogies. I think I won't mention it. But yes.
Leave it to me to do that.
Well, you got to do something.
Yeah. So so they're singing basically to the the grace of Allah and Muhammad is the one true God and blah blah blah. Some sort of things like that, and they've got these really quick cuts. And
like I said, the pilgrimage to Mecca footage is mixed in, and basically this is the very spiritual highlight of the film.
Right. And then they start some lightning comes and
frees them.
From the chains. And then we go into basically like the most action-heavy sequence in the movie.
Yes, which is great.
Like basically Commando.
Yeah, there's like a shitload of explosions but I couldn't make head nor tail
of what was happening. It was like a Michael Bay movie or something. It was like I had no idea. There was like a bunch of explosions, but I didn't know who was killing who. Whatever. There's a lot of blood and explosions and guns.
Very incoherent.
Yeah.
There was one point that made me laugh where one of the characters is going along a death slide, like very slowly.
Yeah.
And behind him there's like explosions going off, and he's firing a gun down below him. Who's he firing at? What's going on? He's just firing at the ground.
Yeah.
while slowly inching along a death slide and explosion. It was more like a fireworks display.
I think they were trying to make it look like
something.
it was like slow motion, but
I don't know. And it turns out that Commander Jason of the Swedish Army also converts at this point.
Swedish Army?
Yes, and the Jewish Army.
The Jewish Army.
Yeah,
the Swedish Jewish Army.
Yes. He converts as well, right?
Right. Yes. They all convert, so they all realize that Muslim is the way to go.
Yes. Muslim's the way to go. Way to go, Islam.
Once you go Muslim, you never go back, right?
And then...
we're going to end up with a fatwa or an assan after this podcast.
Bring it on. Muhammad's a twat. Bring it on. So, out of the sky, Ron's looking a little nervous.
I was like, the opinions expressed in this podcast do not express the views of both people involved.
Yes. Other twats are available.
Yes.
Not just Muhammad, who is one. Anyway, so out... I don't really think Muhammad's a twat. I mean, he might have been.
Yeah, you know.
I never knew the guy.
Yeah.
He was in a different class at school.
Jesus might have been a twat too.
Yes, exactly. We're not taking any sides. Yeah. But he was definitely a gay Jew. So out of the sky come about, I couldn't figure out if it was 3 or 4, but a bunch of copies of the Quran.
Flying in the sky.
Come out of the sky.
Which also has how the movie opened, right?
We saw a little bit of this,
at the very beginning, right?
But we just saw one floating Quran on like a little
it's like an
reading
X-shaped plinth.
Yeah. And but now there's 3 or 4 of them, and they surround Salman, and they spin round and round and round and round, and then they fire laser beams at Salman Rushdie until he bursts into flames.
Right.
And dies. And that's it, pretty much.
So it's a Deus Ex. Is it still considered Deus Ex Machina if it's...
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if the rules apply.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So anyway, it's a Muslim version of Deus Ex Machina where the God or Allah and the Quran itself came...
Quran itself.
Yeah, actually was the weapon that took out the infidel.
And as the quote says, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet.
His prophet, yes.
Even though he was a gay Jew. They don't say that in the movie. That's my interpretation, which I am, entitled to, and not in any way just trying to be provocative.
Right.
And that's the end of International Guerrillas, which is, I'll admit this to you, it is a tiresome movie. I mean, I was fucking glad when it was finished. But I think it is balanced by a certain amount of fascination at just seeing something so very, very, very different. But
I think, to be honest, that if we had discussed the movie in terms of why you chose it or why you feel it's different or why it was significant, I think I may have been more inclined to try to stick it out more.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? But I feel like it was just kind of like I didn't understand what I was watching. I didn't understand why we were watching it. I didn't understand.
Oh, I see. So you were thrown in blind.
I think the blindness maybe contributed to my.
Well, that's my fault. I probably didn't give you enough of a heads up.
Maybe, but again, we're trying to talk too much about it before we do the recording.
That's the
right?
thing, right?
Right. So, but at the same time, I feel like now that what you were saying about like why you thought it was this and why you chose this and it gives me more like because like okay, well I can kind of see where that might be interesting in order to look at that case. But again, I was going in blind. I think maybe I was just in not the right headspace to watch a tiresome Pakistani movie.
Right.
And I think I just sort of like I can't do this anymore.
Bear in mind that unless we're doing one of these things where neither of us have seen it, if it's a choice, I'm not going to steer you wrong.
Okay.
So
no, I know.
Yeah.
But
so
and
there's usually a reason I choose.
As I said, I'm usually up for anything, but for some reason I just really couldn't get through this movie. Like it was, it was. So anyway, I apologize again. I will try to never do that again. I will certainly make my effort, even with porn. So
well, let me ask you this, Mr. Ron. So, for instance, if obviously it's not going to be for a while, but if I once again suggest watching a Pakistani film, and I'm talking Pashtun region, more headache inducing, are you willing to go there? Off the top of my head, if I were to say if it were more in the realm of a horror fantasy film, I'm thinking of one that's known in England, where the bootleg title is Cat Beast. What are your thoughts? I know it's a bit soon, you're still traumatized from this one.
Yeah.
But do you think you might be tempted to...
this
one has no subtitles as well.
Oh, well, not if there's no subtitles, no way.
Oh, no?
No, I don't think I can. I don't think I can make it through a movie that I didn't understand anything that was happening.
Have you never really watched any film
never.
without...
No.
Oh, okay. But some films are quite easy to understand without subtitles.
Yeah, maybe. But I think I would just prefer to...
Okay.
Yeah, to do something that I...
Well, it's good to know. It's good to know for my future reference.
In generally speaking, I mean, I will give things a chance if I can, of course. And of course I would... this is, again, as I said, it's a bit of a pet peeve for me, so it says a lot for this movie that it actually got me to turn it off when I would almost never do that any other time, right? So, would you recommend this film? I will always try, but definitely this is not my kind of movie. Definitely, so definitely not the kind of movie that I enjoy watching or talking about that much.
Clearly.
Not if that's what you're thinking about.
Well, no, I was just getting back to what if it was a unsubtitled film. However, you were provided with a plot synopsis in advance about what's basically happening.
Well, it wasn't the plot synopsis because I had a plot synopsis for this movie.
Okay.
It was on IMDb and on the Wikipedia page.
I don't mean about this now. I just mean in general. If we were going to watch something else in the future, if you knew what was happening, if you had like a plot synopsis to follow, but there was no subtitles. No, it's all right. Don't worry. You're not committing to anything. I'm just interested.
I just want to say, there are a lot of movies in English. There's a lot.
No.
There's a lot of great English movies. Even not so good English movies that we can watch.
Speaking International Guerrillas is for one example of a great movie. Right. So on this specially shortened edition of Magic Morning Wood, is there anything extra you'd like to add, Ron, or to Bent, or to anything we haven't covered?
I apologize if you're angry at me for
not watching the film.
No, not for that. It just seemed like you gave me this film to punish me because you were angry at me. So
for 24 Hours I
maybe for 24 Hours I
No.
I'll be honest. I was like, you must be angry at me because you gave me. I thought maybe you were actually. I thought you were angry at me because I had said no to your first suggestion because I could trouble. Well, because you originally had suggested come and see. And then there was a problem with the subtitles, so I couldn't watch it. So I thought it was like, oh yeah, well then what's this? So I thought it was one of those kind of things. Suck on this. No. Pakistani piece of shit.
Well, no, because that wasn't you turning it down. That was just you. You weren't able to watch it.
Right. Yeah. But
no. To be honest, your reaction to it is, I kind of had a feeling you wouldn't get as much out of it as I did.
Right.
But I didn't think you'd get that little out of it. I thought you would at least have found a certain amount of fascination in it. And I realised that might be my fault because you went in totally blind, right?
Yeah, I was really blind. And then I to be honest, I mean, I know who Salman Rushdie is, but I don't really know much about his real life story that much or about like the ins and outs. And I'm not particular. I would certainly wouldn't consider myself anything even remotely an expert on Islam or even all the ins and outs or of what this means or so a lot of it just even if I had enjoyed the movie story or the acting or the special effects, most everything was going over my head anyway. It was sort of so I think it was it's difficult for me to find something in there.
Right. Well, let this be a lesson listeners to communicate with your podcast partner better in future, and that's on me.
No, I certainly I don't want to go to this blame that was your fault. It was my fault for not just doing it, or I should have done more research. Okay,
then I agree with you. It's all your fault.
It's all my fault. Yeah. So.
On that note,
unless the movie's terrible, never ever watch it. So.
On the alternative side, viewpoint, do watch International Guerrillas at all costs, but do it in installments. Yeah. And and that's about it. We'll be back next month with more Pakistani goodness. I'm sure Ron's going to choose.
Next month is my choice.
Right.
So I'm definitely going to choose.
Who knows?
Interdimensional Guerrillas 2. Definitely so.
Excellent. Okay. That's it.
Signing off.
Yeah.
And so Allah is the one true God and Muhammad is prophet.
And I gauge you.
मोहम्मद हक दे पैगंबर मोहम्मद हक दे पैगंबर